Hello. Thank you, everybody. Welcome. Yeah, there's my tough farmer picture up there. A little different than today. So I have a question for you. How many of you here have heard of Craigslist? Everybody? Almost everybody? All right. So when we go to Craigslist, we're usually looking for something. Maybe it's a piece of furniture, a job, a used bicycle. You know, we look for things that we need, maybe even love. Well, I went to Craigslist in fall of 2008 looking back to give back more. I knew that I had more in me than my IT job to give. So that's when I turned to Craigslist, and I found a post for graphic and web design help for a wonderful idea that Blue Gahalva posted. And little did I know, here we are, the two of us in that Craigslist post would actually influence the way that we grow food and change the way we farm. So what is farming? What does it mean to us as people? It's food, it's jobs, it's grain, it's fuel, it's fiber, it's the clothes we wear. It's actually really hard to think about what in our lives doesn't touch agriculture or doesn't need agriculture to fuel itself. If it's the people or the gasoline, agriculture is very important. Except to us. We're the only ones that don't have any relationship with agriculture. We don't know what farming is. We don't know where our food came from. So that's got to change. There are over 3,013,000 people living in the United States. The USDA says that less than 1% of our population claims agriculture as a career. So that means we rely on less than 1% of our population to grow all our produce, to raise all of our meat, and to create our fuel and fiber. Doesn't seem like a very fair balance. So when was the last time you thought about your meal? How did that food get to your plate? How are those vegetables treated? How is that dairy made? How is that farmer growing its food, taking care of its animals? Would you like the chemicals or the feed that they use? Have you thought about the way they lived? Have you thought about where they came from, their families, what their home looks like? How about the animals? How are they treated? Would you want to be treated like that before it ended up on your plate? Even the dairy cows, how were those ladies treated before they became milk and cheese? And the vegetables, of course. When you go to the superstores and the grocery stores, we see them all beautiful and bright, sitting there. But how did they get there? And how do they look so lovely? And how are they there every day, no matter when we go? How about looking deeper? How about the soil? How was the soil treated? How were the plants treated in that soil? Was that soil alive? Did it have lush greenness? Would you want to walk barefoot on that soil in your field? Or was it dead, void of life, only filled with chemical fertilizers? What we need to do is feed the soil, feed the people, feed the animals. Feed the soil, feed the plants, feed the animals, and then feed the people. We're thinking at it the wrong way. We always think about feeding the people first. How do we feed everybody? Well, we really should start a lot farther down the food chain than people. We really need to start thinking about the soil, start thinking about the plants and the animals and how they're treated. But let's start with feed the people. How have we been doing in the last, let's say, 30 years in America? Have we been doing a good job feeding our people? America, we have a lot of choices when we go to the supermarket. It's really hard. You have all these tempting donuts and chips, everything that you want to eat because it tastes good. It's actually chemically made to taste good. But is it chemically made to make you feel good? To give you the nutrients and the vitality you need as a human being? I don't know. I have a statistic, and I think it will prove the fact. Here we are in 1985, and this is the obesity rate in America. This is a map. You can see that there's not a single state in the nation that has anywhere over 15% obesity rate. Here we are 5 years later. You are still doing pretty good. You know, no one's at 15% or higher yet. 5 years later, over half the nation is now reaching that 15 to 20% obesity rate. Another 5 years, look what happens. Another half of the nation, 5% obesity rate raising each 5 years, 2005. Now we have 3 states in the nation that are over 30% obese. We had only, 4 states left that are in the 15 to 20 range. This is happening very fast. And here we are in the last year, 2010. Many of the states in our nation are now over 30% obese. No state now is under 20%. We're not feeding ourselves right. We're not doing it right. Maybe we should start making better choices. Maybe we should think when we're at the grocery store what we're bringing home. What are we feeding our families? What are we feeding ourselves? Now let's talk about the animals. How do we feed the animals? How do we do it so far? This is a drawer full of chicks. You can see this is a very dim picture, but this is a drawer full of chicks. I don't know if they're meat birds. I don't know if they're egg layers. They're too young to tell. But I can tell that there's no food, there's no water or sanitation in the way that these birds are treated. I think this looks a little better. I think chicks should be raised by their hens. They should learn how to forage, and they should eat the food that they belong to be eating. This is a much better picture of chicks. Now here's our hogs. Nothing against meat or anything, but this is where your bacon comes from. These pigs are in troughs that are so small they can't even turn around. The only thing that they can do is feed the food that's fed to them. It's the only enrichment, the only engagement they get. If you look carefully, you can actually see that these pigs have been spray painted for their sex. Navy blue for the boys and magenta for the girls. I don't know you, but I think farmers should know which pigs are girls and which pigs are boys without having to spray paint them. I think pigs should have friends and fences and grass and live like the way pigs should live. This looks like a much better picture than what we saw before. Here's images of a organic dairy farm in Texas. It's called Aurora Dairy. As you can see, it's much harder in Texas than it is here. So they have huge fans, and the only shade that you see on their feedlot is where their feed is. They have no shade. They have no pasture to forage. They have nothing. You can see that they're in hoof-deep manure in their feedlot. Is this the way we want to treat our animals? Is this what the animals that we want to put in our body? This is how they're treated before we do it. I don't know, but this looks better. I like cows that have pasture in the background and a wooden fence to lean on. I'm sure there's a few trees in the field so they can get out of the sun, even if it is Rhode Island. But the scariest part about our industrial farming is that we're exporting it. We're bringing it all over the world. 2 out of 3 animals that we eat are factory farmed. 2 out of 3. I don't know. That's a scary fact. And I don't think that we should be exporting this practice. I think, again, this looks better. This is how we should be raising our food. It should be family farmers who actually care about the well-being of their animals. Now let's talk about feeding the soil. We've talked about the people. We've talked about the animals. Now we're going to talk about the soil. Underneath us, in the ground, there's a vast amount of life, a whole network of life that we don't even consider as we walk over it day in and day out, and when we dump our water and the things that we do. You have pictures of protozoas and amoebas. Here's some fungi. These are all the networks that create our soil. This is what keeps life all together. These are the building blocks of life. The microscopic life that we don't even consider are really the only reason why we have plants. Therefore, feed for our animals and then for us. Ooh, we haven't seen this one in a while, have we, huh? Since high school, right? Chemistry? Ooh. Again, talking about building blocks. These are the building blocks of life. These are the elemental building blocks of life, and if they don't exist in our soil, they're not going to exist in our food, and they're not going to exist in us. And if we don't have the building blocks of life in our food, then how are we going to have good life? How are we going to build upon our own lives if we don't have what we need when we need it? So how do we feed the soil? It's something we don't really think about. We don't think about those microscopic animals, and how do we care for them in the same way that we care for our animals, in the same way that we care for ourselves? The top picture is minerals. We can remineralize, adding things like calcium and green sand and the things that your soil needs to thrive. And here is a picture of compost, good compost, well-made, well-turned, healthy, alive compost. That's going to feed the microscopic life in your soil so that it can feed your plants and feed your animals and feed you. And of course, a cow, which I get to share the stage with a nice cow too. Animal husbandry, the way we care for animals is very important, not just for their well-being, but also how we manage their waste, how we manage what we feed. It's really important we really start thinking about what we're doing with our animals and how we care for them. So, another famous TED talker, Ron Finley, once said that food is the problem and food is the solution. But where does that leave us? We can clearly see that food is the problem and it's killing us. But how do we make food the solution? Well, you get out there, you get in the dirt. That's what you have to do. So what we did in 2009 is we found an abandoned community garden called the Barton Street Community Garden. And as you can see, forgotten about, weeds already my height by May. So we got busy, we got working. We pulled those boxes up, we got new soil, we started getting active. We wanted to make sure that we introduced agriculture back, but particularly into our urban environments. But you gotta teach the youth, you gotta teach your community, you gotta outreach. So not only did we get busy in the soil, we got busy with our communities. These kids here did a summer program with us, and they're standing in front of the Swiss chard and the radishes, that they grew that season. That was the first time any of those kids grew any food, ever planted a seed. In fact, I have a great story. One of the kids, when we were pulling out the radishes, he was shocked. He was shocked beyond the fact that we actually grew a radish. He sat there and he argued with me, saying, "No, you went to the store. You put that in before we got here. I know you're tricking me, You can't do that to me, Miss Emmy." And I was like, all right, whatever you say, But the other kids believed, and they talked him into it. They knew that they planted that radish, and the power of a seed and the power of life really blew them away. It really blew them away. So what did we do? We got the community involved. We got more people involved. We wanted them to have fun, and I think they look like they're having a little fun. Faces painted, radishes to eat, happy kids, even in the city. You can see abandoned train depots and CVS's in the background. Might not be the most beautiful vista, but right there in the garden it is. So what did we do? We did it again. We found an acre lot abandoned at a Pawtucket housing authority called Gallego Court. It used to be a playground and had been shut down for 20 years. And that's when we cut the lock, opened the gate, and started an urban farm and community garden. Here's the very first day. We had over 100 volunteers coming out to build this. And it was amazing. Community members from all walks of life getting together, making food happen in their community. And we grew food this year. That's the same year. That was May, and this is later in the season. We have zucchinis and cucumbers, and we really grew a lot of food. And a lot of people grew food for the first time. In fact, Cheryl there had never grown a zucchini in her life, and she has 3 beautiful, chemically-free zucchinis in her hand. We dreamed big, too. We dreamed really big, of geodesic domes and aquaponics, and then we made it a reality. We have 3 geodesic domes sitting on our urban farm, and inside the largest dome, we have our aquaponics program. Aquaponics is a symbiotic relationship with plants and fish. So we raise tilapia fish, and we use their waste, fish poop, to grow amazing food. This is a piece of watercress, and you can just see the roots. So you can tell it's a very happy relationship. And we've been teaching and working with students from all over the state, all over the town here, from RISD to Brown to Johnson & Wales, and even high school students. We've worked with students of all ages. Here we are last fall. You can see Blue and some of the students planting garlic and shallots. This is our farm out on Route 6. So not only do we want to make sure that urban air environments have farms, but we want to make sure that we reclaim our farmland and ensure that the urban people have access to healthy food. And it's a little fun. Hard work, but it's fun. And we enjoy it. This is my crew rolling out some hay. And we grow a lot of food. You can see our rows planted with greens. You can see some of our potatoes we harvested last year. We got blueberries and lots of food. Lettuce, farmers markets, peppers. We want all that. We want to bring it to everybody. And it's easy. And it starts with a seed and some good soil. But it also comes with some inspiration. We couldn't have done this by ourselves. You can see me there in the top corner with Will Allen from Growing Power in Milwaukee. Down here is Blue with Elliot Coleman, a 4-season farmer in Maine, a very huge inspiration for any New Englander. And here we are with Sandor Katz. Well, not me. I guess that's Blue. I'm taking the picture. And Sandor Katz is basically the fermentation guru of modern day. And he's really allowed us to look at our harvests and our fields in a different way and figure out a way to preserve it and share it with even more community members. Community members like this. This is Uti. He's going to be a future farmer because of us. He's been farming since he was 3 years old. And he says he's going to take the farm over one day, and I really do hope so. Here he is with a tray full of tomato plants. He's helping me carry them from the greenhouse to go to the field. And the one amazing thing about kids that grow food, they eat food, and they love it. They're willing to try things that you'll never be able to get them to try if you brought it home from the grocery store. And they have a lot of fun. They enjoy it. Kids like fresh food. They just need to know it. How can you enjoy something if you don't know it? You need to be aware. You need to have the knowledge to be able to do something about your environment. And these kids are doing it with vegetables. Everyone can do this. This is happy chickens in a backyard. This is Blue with his chickens. So it doesn't matter. Urban lots, suburban lots, or rural lands. Happy chickens make happy eggs, or happy meat birds, depending on what you want. We can also grow things that we never thought you could grow before. We can get into kingdoms that we never thought about before. Here we're growing oyster mushrooms. Here are plugs for shiitakes. We're teaching kids how to raise fish, grow plants, take care of animals, and then grow fungus, edible fungus, something they never even thought about, let alone wanted to try until they grew it themselves. Here we are in our orchard in Warren. We just planted over 60 trees for the future generation. Because not only is it important to teach the next generation to farm, to make it cool again, we need to plan for the future. We need to make ideas and sustainable environments so that these trees can be enjoyed for years to come. 100 years from now, people are going to be eating those apples that we planted. It's a pretty powerful thing, just a tree. And again, education. We got to make farming cool again. It's a career for everyone, anyone. I know some people value 401ks and company cars, but I kind of like suntans before Memorial Days and all the vegetables I want. And there's nothing more beautiful than being in the field and feeling that morning dew. So if it's through art or through the sciences or training programs, we're going to bring farming back to our environments, urban, suburban, rural. We need more than 1% farmers, and we need it badly. Here we are, Nishay, he's planting in the aquaponics program at his backyard farm. We have dirty hands and happy kids. We're making it cool to garden again. We want the victory garden back, and it's gonna be a victory over bad food, the food that's killing us, this poison food. So, we might have not heard victory gardens for a few years, maybe your grandparents said it or something like that, but I wanna bring it back. It's time that these kids know that they have the power to have good food, good jobs, and a good environment. Because we believe that the community that grows together. Thank you.